Hello and welcome back to Soccer Supernova with me, Amy Canavan. Let's just get right into this one. I'm absolutely delighted to be joined by Dundee United, Peterborough, St Johnstone, Hearts, Hibs, everywhere else in between, and current East Fife player Danny Swanson. Danny, thanks so much for joining us. How are you?
No problem, I'm fine. I'm glad to be on and looking forward to it.
Fab. As we say, plenty of clubs to talk about, so let's just get right into it. We'll talk about football for you as a kid, but before we touch on that, obviously it's been quite well documented that you have a little bit of like a heart defect. When was that discovered? Was it through playing football, or was it even younger than that?
No, it was younger than that. Obviously, I was born in '86, and it's a bit different now. You get all these scans and you can see things, but before you couldn't really see much. So I was actually born with it, but it wasn't until I was like 3 years old, and my mum noticed I was getting like purple lips and out of breath really quickly. Took me up to the sick kids, and they just said you need to get an emergency bypass. You've got a hole in your heart. So obviously, I didn't remember anything as a kid. Like I remember, funny enough, I remember sitting outside as a kid, like that age. It was mental, but that's the only thing I remember. Just sitting outside the room, and then got to like 14, and then I was getting yearly checkups, and I felt all right. And the doctor said to me that I need to get another one. So at the time, I was like, I feel all right. Why would I need that? And they were saying, well, there'll come a time we won't be able to get to the other side of the room without kind of having to sit down. I was like, well, my dad kind of took it a bit worse than I did. My dad's quite a tough, kind of hardy guy. And when I seen him kind of leaving the room in tears, like it kind of hit me a little bit. But I just thought to myself, it needs to be done. And to be fair, once it got done, I was back playing within like 9 months and never ever had a problem since. I think it's probably affected my fitness because one of the valves has been like damaged from the operation, but it's never really stopped me getting to where I got to. So it's just a thing that I didn't mind talking about. It's quite I've got a big scar down my chest that every team I go to, somebody always says, "Oh, what happened there?" And I've got to give them the story, but I'm quite proud of it. So I didn't mind it.
Absolutely a whirlwind.
Aye.
So, like you say, just a young boy, come from Leith Athletics, one of the first clubs. You sort of dart about Hutchie Vale as well. Was football career, was that always what you wanted to do?
Do you know what? I just loved playing football, but I never thought that I'd play professional, because I always played up until I never got picked for a professional team until I was basically, well, semi-professional Berwick Rangers till I was 19. So up until when I was 12, 13, everybody wants to be a football player and say, I'm going to play for Hibs and whatever. It never really happened for me. And I got to like under 19s where I was like 17 at the time at Leith Athletic. And I was just quite happy playing with my pals. And we won a few cups and we had a really good team. But then we got to a point we were all too old to play that age. So we had to go our separate ways. I ended up going on trial at Vale Leaving. Went in there. I went on trial at Berwick. My dad had to beg John Coughlin for a trial. So I went, not thinking that I would ever play. Done really well. They offered me 20 quid a week and I snapped a hand off for it. And then first season was all right at Berwick. I played a little bit. And then the second season when I really played a few games and thought, all right, I could play this level all right. And then teams started noticing and it kind of for there. A few teams came calling. We played Hamilton in the Cup. And after the game, I was on the way down the road back home and the manager phoned and says, we've just accepted a bid for 50 grand from Hamilton. And I was just like, what? Couldn't believe what was going on. So they accepted it and I was to meet them in the morning and it was someone that I'm still quite embarrassed to be talking now. I ended up going to meet the Hamilton manager the next game day, took my day off work because I was a plumber at the time. Met the manager. I had never done anything like this before. I had no idea what was going on. So he gave me the tour around the stadium, talking about how he wants me to play. And I seen everything. I was like, wow, okay. I said I'd sign for him the next game day. Woke up in the morning, never turned up, just didn't feel right. Weird. I thought it all happened too quick. And then 6 months later, Dundee United came in. And that was when I went up to speak to them. Then that just kind of was what I wanted to do. Signed a pre-contract there and it was the best thing I've ever done.
Do you think it's I've spoke about it a few times with ex-pros and people like yourself that the fun and the enjoyment is sort of taken out of football from youngsters nowadays when they're going through in the academy. Do you think that grounding at Berwick and Leith and Vale, Leith and all of that, do you think that's still the key and the right path to be going down? Obviously every footballer is different, but for you personally then, like you say, it's all about enjoyment with your friends.
I totally agree. Like, that's something I would always say, because I do my own kind of academy now, and there's a lot of kids that want to play for Hibs now, and I'm just saying to them, just play where you're enjoying it, because I've seen it. I've been at these clubs, and you can see their academies, and a lot of these teams that pick up kids, they'll say 14-year-olds, they'll take 20, 14-year-olds in, and they know for day one, they're like, 18 of these guys will never play football. Yeah. It's just for these other two to kind of progress, and that's how it works. And it's hard for kids to get told that, no, you're not good enough for this team at a young age. So it was the way I did it. Like, it's not the way I would have like imagined it, but it's definitely helped me appreciate when I actually got there, to appreciate what I actually had, because I see a lot of kids now that are, once they get released once, they fall in love with the game, and that's all it takes, and they're only young, you know what I mean? And how they take that, it's up to them. But it happened to my little brother. My little brother was at Dundee United, and once he got released, he kind of felt like football was done for him.
Yeah, you're spot on, because like you say, it is all about for the love of the game. So you're still in love with the game. Dundee United come calling. Is it Craig Levein in charge?
Aye, Craig Levein. They put a similar bid in, 50 grand. They accepted, and then the next game day I went up to Dundee United, and Craig Levein just blew me away. And I'd been brought up to hate Craig Levein. I was a mad Hibby, and Craig Levein was
an enemy.
The dark side, and I just took to him right away. And if it wasn't for Craig Levein, I'll still say it, I would never have got to the level I got to. From day one, he looked after me. He gave me a loan of 4 grand because I had no money to get a car. I had no car, I had no money. He said, "There's 4 grand, pay me back when you can." And just little things like that. And when things weren't going great, because I found the first few months hard going to full-time football, and he would always notice little things, and I'd not even noticed that he'd noticed these things, and he'd pull me up a few days later and he'd speak to me about it. And he was just a top guy as well, and he just helped me massively, and I've got so much respect for him, and still to this day, always say if it wasn't for him, I don't know what I would have done. Big
scary bugger, eh? I had John Daly on last night, and he's like, "Oh, I went up and I would go into like the first few training sessions, and I'd look around and be like, what have I walked into?"
He is a scary man, and see when you look at it, you think, "Oh, guy with glasses, no, he's not angry, but he's ruthless. Like, I've seen him have boys up with the throat in the hall and everything, big guys as well. And he always loved a wee scuffle at training. You didn't see much of it now, but back then, if boys tackled and got a wee scuffle, he loved it. And that was just, his training, that was so intense. And that's what I found hard at the start. I thought, wow, this is real men's football now. And he was a big, scary man.
Like you say, so you're coming in at United side with a big scary man. It's a really talented bunch under Levein, and he was really building something with Peter Houston. And obviously, as similar to John Daly, you could really see maybe on the outside people were sort of like, how's Levein got the Scotland job? But I remember John Daly was so like video analysis, and he was really forward thinking in that sense. He's sort of coming across a bit like a father figure to yourself when you're up there. What was it like when he left?
At the time he left, I wasn't playing as much. I was kind of out of the team. I hadn't played. I remember it was like 6 games in a row I hadn't started. And obviously I was frustrated. But when he left, usually you think if you're not playing and the manager leaves, it's a week. But I felt gutted that he left. And but at the time they built it wasn't just the team that he built. From day one when he walked into that club, the club went from bottom to top, just improved. He'd done everything. He was so interested in every game he'd go to. Young, no matter what under it is, he'd go to every single game. My dog's trying to get in. And he was just football mad. And to me, he took a liking to me for some reason. I don't know if it was just because I'd just come off the plumbing days and I was just quite rougher in the edges, but he really took to me and helped me with everything. He got quite pally with my dad as well. My dad, he always would speak to my dad, but as a manager, I know he gets a lot of stick for this game and when he was at Scotland, but like the squad that he built for Dundee United was very, very strong outside the Old Firm, and I still think give us 2 years with that same squad and we would have split the Old Firm, but it just wasn't to be. Obviously, boys got bigger moves, and England money's a bit different, so it was just a bit gutting we didn't get to spend a bit longer with him, but he deserved his crack at Scotland.
You see, talking about that squad, just pre-Scottish Cup squad, your Conways, your Dillons and your Dixons and your Goodwillies and Daly himself, it really, like you say, there really was talent up there.
We had a massive, like, the squad we had, it was very strong, like obviously with Big John up front, and Goody off him, that was like it could play, it'd score goals in any team, and Conway off one side, me off the other, and we had Morgaro and Prince in the middle of the park. And the way they played together, see, the thing is, you took one of them out and it wouldn't be great, but you had them both together and they were both incredible on their day, and we were quite solid as well. And we had Lee Walkie obviously got injured, when Andy Webster came in, he made a massive difference, but right around the team we were so strong. And once we won the quarter-finals and then the semis, we were very confident we were going to win the cup. Like, I didn't feel any nerves in the actual cup final, because I was so confident in the bunch of boys that we had.
Like you say, so it was a great opportunity. So we're talking 2010 now. Peter Houston's in charge. You're right back in the team. Obviously, the day before the semi-final, Celtic are put out by Ross County, and yourselves are playing Wraith. There's not going to be a greater opportunity for a side like United. Like you say, you were on the rise, but what was the feeling in the camp at that point?
Well, it's like any team. You didn't want Celtic or Rangers at Hampden in a cup final. You know what I mean? It's just like people can say, "Oh, have a go at them" and that, but it's just they've been there that many times. You know what I mean? And then once Ross County put Celtic out, I think Ross County was before our Wraith game, so we knew going into the Wraith game, if we beat Wraith, we were playing Ross County to win the Scottish Cup. And no saying Ross County were a poor team, and even on the final they didn't turn up. They froze, completely froze, because they had got some good players. But you're going to play Celtic or you're going to play Ross County, you know who you're taking, because even the team we had, I wouldn't fancy us beating Celtic at Hampden in a cup final. Just being honest, I just wouldn't have seen it. Luckily enough, Ross County done the work for us, and then it was the rest is history.
Talk us through it then. Obviously, like you say, it's the Scottish Cup. Every young boy sort of wants to win it. Silverware's so vital. Talk us through your emotions on that day. Like you say, you're in the starting 11, you play the whole game.
It's basically the lead up is like, obviously we're going to stay in the hotel for a few days before it, so it was kind of everything was geared towards this day, and everybody you spoke to was talking about it. Like, it was the amount of messages I would get, and it was brilliant. And I roomed with Goodwillie. We were quite close, and the night before we didn't even really, we weren't worried. We were just like, if we play our game, we'll win. And we would talk through scenarios. If this happened, what would he do? And like on the pitch, and that's how our relationship was. And the only time I got a bit nervous, even going on the bus before, it wasn't nervous. I was fine. The only bit nervous was when we were walking at the stadium and the fireworks started going off, and I was just like, oh, this. And I just seen all the tangerine. It was incredible, and I was like, all right, okay, this is it now. And then once the whistle went, I was fine, and I played really well. I got a bit tired, got a bit cramp and stuff, but I done really well, and I was delighted that like my family and that were there to see it and to share it with the boys. It was some experience, and the lap of honour at the end was something that I'll never forget, and having that medal is massive.
Like you say, so you win the Scottish Cup, and then this is from John Daly, by the way. I wasn't going to bring this up, but we've obviously, like you say, we've got a great squad kicking around, and like a really promising team. Obviously, European games come next. Talk us through that miss. It's all from him, I swear. I wasn't going to mention it. He's like, you better question him about that. He's like, I regret that. He better regret that.
The missing Athens he's talking about.
Oh, yes.
Do you know the thing is, I shouldn't have been playing that day. I had been injured for about 4 months or something, and then they took me over thinking I'll get 15 minutes out of me. So I got that, and if I scored that, we were through. And it kind of just bounced to me, and I actually caught it well, and it just clipped outside the post. But I was in training, I'd finish them all the time, no problem. And I've tried to forget about it, but it kind of keeps popping up. Things like this keeps popping up. But oh no, I was devastated. I was gutted because I hadn't played the full game. I'd been sub, and the boys had done so well considering they were strong. They were very strong. A lot of the players that played that day went on to like Champions League football, and they were a strong team. But that was. I'm trying to think of some Mrs. John miss, but I could be here all day. Why don't bringing that up anyway?
Exactly. Just touching on that, and I sort of say that to John as well. It was a squad in depth and a really promising side. Do you think you did have the capabilities to go further in Europe? Is that a regret?
Well, see, I always look at the Aberdeen team that got to the knockout stages, and like in Europe, like I think managers are massive in Europe. Like I noticed it with Neil Lennon when I was at Hibs. Like because we don't know the teams as much, and you get little things for the manager. I think that helps, and I think we done so well that day. Our game plan was excellent, and if we just got through that game, you just never know because they were one of the strongest teams in the competition at the end. But I don't know. Like the thing is, people look at teams that we've probably never heard of in Europe and think, "Oh, who's this team?" But they end up being good. Like you get these teams that are technically, because a lot of the countries are technically better than us. And you come across these teams and you're like, "Wow, who's this?" And these foreign guys you've never heard of before. So it would have been hard, but I just wish we had that chance. Like, but I'll take that. I'll take that on the chin.
Got to take that on the chin. So like you say, you're doing really well in between those European campaigns, and then a Scotland call-up comes up for all your efforts. Like you say, it's Levine's still in the role there, and what all happens there?
I've spoken about this before. The Scotland call-up came at the worst time for me personally. I had a proper breakdown at one point. I had suffering with bad depression, anxiety, and then ended up getting this call when I was in the midst of it. I was in the worst, the lowest I could ever be. I was crying every night. My life was just in a complete disaster. Got this call up, and I remember feeling absolutely nothing to it. I just like gutted. I was actually thinking I've got to go on a plane. Like I can't go on a plane like this. Ended up we spoke to my wife and that. Got on the plane. No, actually went to Glasgow first. I remember we picked up Goody on the way, and I was just crying the whole way. Didn't want to be there. It was horrible. Got there, got to the hotel. Didn't sleep. I remember at first night in the hotel, didn't sleep. Up for training and trained really well. Trained really well for 3 days. Like felt fine on the training pitch. Come off the training pitch, felt terrible again. And then Craig pulled me aside and says, "Oh, you've been brilliant. You didn't know it this time. You've been excellent. I didn't bring you here to think about even starting you, but you've kind of on my radar now." I was, "Oh, great." Didn't feel anything still. Was just like, "Oh, just let me get back to my room." A couple of days pass, and then it was the day before the game against Liechtenstein, I think it was, or Spain, not Spain. I spoke to Craig Levine. I said, "I need to go home." And then he just basically said to me, "You're not going home." He was like, "See it out. I'll not get you involved in the games." And it took the pressure off a wee bit, and I actually felt all right. And then after the Spain game, I started feeling a wee bit better, just being around everybody and that. But he still said, "I'm not having you involved in any of the games." So I think if it was at a different time, I probably would have made an appearance considering how well I trained. But the mindset I was in was just, I was just absolutely knackered. And it was just, the timing was just really bad. But even just training with boys like Darren Fletcher and stuff like that, I've still got my strip, and just being called up was massive for me. Obviously, I would have loved to play, but it wasn't to be. But the squad I was involved with was remarkable. Premiership players all over the place. So it's something that I'm definitely proud of, just to even get there.
Yeah, absolutely. So then you head back to Dundee United, and like you say, you are open about mental health. Do you make Dundee United aware of it? Did they support you through it, or? Oh,
massively. They were. When I got back, that was kind of the final straw for me. It was. They kind of knew a little bit about it, but not to the extent it was it. I remember Willow Flood coming up to me. We were in David Lloyd gym, and the boys would be up at the gym, and I would just be sitting on the sofas, just sitting there staring at it, and I don't know what. He came up to me and was like, "Danny, what's wrong?" So this is what, it's a good 10 years ago, is it? No, maybe 9 years. And he was like, I was like, "Well, I don't know." At this time, I hadn't been diagnosed with it. I was just basically didn't know what was going on. hadn't really known anything about it. And Willow was like, "What's the matter with you?" I was like, "I really don't know. I have no idea." And Willow was like, didn't really know either. And he's a more experienced guy. And I was just like, "Mate, I don't know what's going on with me." So I remember going to training once, and I was walking over and I just phoned the doc, and I was just like, "I'm struggling here. Like, the thoughts and stuff I was getting was scaring me a lot." And then the Phyllis, the doctor, spoke to the chairman at Dundee United, and they basically said, "We'll put you in the Priory in Glasgow for a week." It was 2 weeks. It was over Christmas time. It was I think it was like 1st of December. And I think it cost them a lot of money. I think it was like something like 35 grand or something for 2 weeks. But Dundee United just done it. They just said they want to get it sorted. And I done that. I got a 2 week break, and I think the break from everything, basically, I was out the way. Peter Houston said I had an ankle injury. I was not going to be fit for the next month or so. So nobody was talking about it. And at the time, I just needed to be kind of no worrying about football, no worrying about anything. And it just kind of, the Priory, I wouldn't say much about the actual classes I'd done in the Priory, but just having time to myself and learning about how my mind was working at the time, and just having a bit of freedom away from social media, away from TVs, away from anything really. And it kind of helped me massively. Once I came out, it took me a while to kind of get used to it, but the things I learnt in there, I just, coming out the other end of depression, it's the best feeling in the world. And you really appreciate everything. Obviously, you're going to have some bad days in that, but to come out of what you've came out of, because it is a hard battle, but once you come out of it, you're like a new man, and that's how I felt. And I'm so grateful to Dundee United at the time.
It is heartwarming to hear, and it's not trying to be condescending or anything like that. So then, obviously, Dundee United have really supported you through all this, and you do. I know you still hold the club in high regard. You had a great time there. Does the move to Peterborough then sort of, like, it's like a clean slate altogether, like you say, it's sort of moving to a place where you're probably not the best known, no disrespect, but you're just going down, and it's like you say, it is just a clean slate. Was that more appealing than anything?
Well, I always wanted to play in England, but when I got that scare, I was like, "Oh, I'm just quite happy to stay here. I was just quite happy to stay here." I ended up, after I came to the Priory, I still had like these kind of anger, like no anger issues, but I had like, sometimes I'd feel like people were being disrespectful to me, even if they weren't, and I'd kind of snap at people. I ended up doing that. We were playing against away to Aberdeen, and after the game I'd played, and Peter Houston said something to the group, and I kind of said something back, and then we got in a big barney, and then that was it. We fell out massively, hadn't spoke, and really bad falling out head to head, and that was it. Basically, we were talking about a contract, but he basically said at the time, he was like, "That contract's off the table, you're done," and that. And I was just being stubborn, and I was angry, and I take it was all my fault, but it's just the way I was feeling at the time. I was just angry all the time. And so that was it. And then once he said that, I phoned my agent. I was like, "I want to go to England." And I had a couple of teams. It was MK Dons I went to speak to, and I went to speak to Peterborough. And then once I went to speak to Darren Ferguson at Peterborough, it kind of, I wanted to go there just for being who he was and what he was talking about. Alex Ferguson's son. How can you learn from somebody better except for Alex Ferguson? So I was delighted to move there. And like you say, I was pretty unknown there in the Championship. Not a big team in the Championship, and first season was hard, but I loved it because it was so difficult, and I played some good games, played some terrible games, played a few of them in my time. But no, I absolutely loved it. And even moving down, like, Peterborough's not the most beautiful, but we had Cambridge around us, we had London. It was amazing just to be away. And you're right, it was something kind of taking you away from like Scottish football, because it is like a goldfish bowl up here.
What is Darren Ferguson like?
Amazing. What a guy. He was just... He mentioned, he'd name dropped his dad a few times, like, he loved that.
Of course.
But then...
Who wouldn't?
So would I.
So would I.
He was amazing. He made me such a better player as a midfielder, because he was a midfielder at the time when he played, and he made me look at the game so differently, and he just brought me on so much. And the second season I was there, I should have stayed there. They offered me a new deal. I just got Player of the Year as well in the second year, and I should have just stayed. I ended up chasing a wee bit more money to go to Coventry, which was a big mistake in the end, but live and learn, I suppose.
You like you see, you had a really great time at Peterborough, and it was a really you say it was obviously a lower side in the Championship, but there were some really decent players there. Lee Tomlin sticks out. Again, one of these guys who probably should have played a little bit higher in the leagues and made a little bit better a career. But and you won an EFL trophy along the way as well, so it wasn't all too bad at all, was it?
It wasn't. The only problem I had was I found it hard because I was Scottish, right? I was the only Scottish player in the team, right? And as I went down, the first few games didn't go to plan, basically. Like, basically, we'd lost like 7 in a row. I'd been in and out, and there was it was mad. So basically, have you ever seen like Peterborough? They've basically got like when you walk out the stadium, the tunnel at the game, they've basically got this woman called Miss Posh, right? So she walks out with the team, and her family is like on not the board, but they're kind of quite involved in Peterborough. They had actually organised a fund to get me a train up the road to Scotland, back to Scotland. It was mental. It was someone I was like, what is going on here? I've just moved in and they're wanting me back away already. So that was hard to take because I was like, just give it a chance. And then once I got a wee run in the team, it was great. And then obviously we had boys like Lee Tomlin and Dwight Gale, and we had some players like, and Lee Tomlin to this day I still say he's probably the best player technically that I've ever played with. It was just he's off field antics,
off the pitch,
flash cars, and he was just interested in being flash. But what a player, man! He was unbelievable. But we had some team as well, and we just couldn't stay up. Last day we got relegated, and then the season after that we ended up winning the trophy at Wembley, which is looking at it, people say, oh, it was a Johnson's paint at the time, but that's massive for us, massive. It's the only chance Peterborough have got winning a proper trophy, and to get to the final and seeing all the fans was incredible. And I played really well in the game, which was even better, and it was a great experience again.
Hampden or Wembley?
Wembley.
Really?
Wembley was incredible. No, but then again, no, I take that back. Right, Wembley's probably a nicer stadium, right?
Yep.
Right, nicer stadium, nicer arena.
Yeah.
But Hampden, for the atmosphere, and growing up as a boy, going to Hampden to to watch a cup. I say Hampden, but as an actual arena, if you were to pick one, obviously Wembley just for the size of that. But walking up the steps to Hampden's unbeatable for a Scottish lad.
It's not a bad wee stat, playing both.
Aye, that's one of them that my mates always say. It'll be in a pub quiz one day, and that I was like, Hampden, man.
Remember that, need to remember that. Like you say, so maybe chasing a little bit of money in Coventry, it doesn't quite work out. Stephen Presley's manager there as well, What's it with these Hearts players? What are you doing?
Well, no, just surrounded with them, surrounded with them. But Coventry was what. Like, I loved staying down there. It just never really clicked. I never really played great, to be honest. I only went there because I was getting a wee bit extra money, and I thought to myself, I'm no allegiance to Peterborough. You know what I mean? I didn't support Peterborough. It's just, so I was quite happy just to leave there and go to another team for more money. I wasn't bothered. But in the long run, it was probably one of the worst mistakes I could have made. But as a club, even though they get a lot of bad, they always looked after their players. Living where we lived in Warwick, which is one of the nicest places I've ever seen. So the experience of that was great, but just on the field I struggled, and I just found it hard to get my confidence back, and I just couldn't. It was time for me to leave. I kind of went back on loan to St Johnstone, and I felt I had to get out of there because it just wasn't working for me.
Was it in that initial loan to St Johnstone? Did you think I could play up here?
Well, I was still, but then when I was at St Johnstone, Presley got sacked, and to be fair, Presley was brilliant. I was like, even though I never played so much with him, I really like Stephen. He's a really good manager, and he was honest. He was brutally honest at the time. He said, "You're better going up to play. You're not going to play here," which was fine. He got sacked, and then you think, right, new manager coming out of Coventry, Tony Mowbray, ex-Hibs manager. I was like,
about time.
And everybody's like, oh, boys for the team, oh, Swanee, he'll love you and all that. So I was thinking, right, brilliant, day well at St Johnstone, and I did. Went down to Coventry, hadn't heard from anybody, went in first day, had a team meeting, and he didn't even ken who I was. He didn't even ken who I was. He went, and what's your name, son? And right for then I was like, that'll be that then, So that's when I kind of had my mindset, and then I trained away. I actually did really well in pre-season because I kind of had no pressure because I thought to myself, I'll not be here. He doesn't even know who I am. I just trained away. And then every club I've been to, Peterborough, Coventry, I've always tried to get Goody in. I've always tried to get Goodwillie done.
Yeah.
Because top striker, always off-field problems. So Peterborough, at the time, he was at Blackburn, so he wasn't going to come to us. And then when I was at Coventry, I don't know where he was at the time, but I tried to get him to Tony Mowbray. He was like, oh, Goodwillie, okay, what position's he in that? So he didn't know much about him. I'm like, right, okay, just at Blackburn. Is he Scottish? I went, aye, he's Scottish. And he went, oh, we've got you, Jim O'Brien, John Fleck, David Goodwillie. That's 4 Scottish guys. Too many Scottish guys in one team. Too many. I was just like, oh, wow. I was like, I'm out of here. So that was kind of the final straw for me.
God forbid, 4 Scottish guys, eh?
4 Scottish guys, and every team in England needs a Scottish guy. It's proven.
Absolutely.
Right, so it just never really, like, he was fine in that, but it just, once he said that, who are you, son? And then I knew right away. I was like, all right, I'm going back up the road.
And it's that bad that you even go to Hearts.
Sorry, you're jumping a little bit. Is that better?
That better? Yep, I'll take note of that. 30.
So
it's that bad that you even go up to Hearts?
Well, basically, there's a story before I go to Hearts, right? So basically, I get told for Coventry, I'm not wanted. I was like, right, okay, well, you've got to pay me what I'm due, and I'll leave. So they agreed to pay me up a percentage of what I was due and stuff. So I was all happy. It was quite a bit of money, to be fair. So I was absolutely delighted. At this point, I didn't really have anything else to fall back on. So I was like, I'm not sure. I'll just take the money and I'll take my time. So I came to the training ground in the morning. Tony says, right, we've sorted out the money and stuff. You need to come back at 4 o'clock or something, or 5 o'clock to sign these documents. So I ended up going home, coming back to the training ground, got stuck in traffic, like really stuck. It was like 5:30, still stuck in this traffic. And I was like panicking. They were phoning me. I was like, I'll be there in 5 minutes, be there in 5 minutes. Get there, and they're like, we can't do it anymore. That's it. You've just lost all that money. You're going to have to stay here. And I was like, how? And they were like, oh, it's after the deadline. And then I was like, devastated. I was nearly crying. I was like, oh my God. And then luckily there was a rule or something you could do it, but I can't play for another team in England. So I was like, right, that's fine. I'll go back up to Scotland. I wasn't sure on going back to Scotland at the time because I was still young. I was like, so when they said that, I was like, that's fine. I'll go back up to Scotland. And I was thinking St Johnstone. And then at the time, I was coming up the road, and then I got a phone call for Hearts. So I came off the phone to Hearts. I was like, right, okay. So I got in contact with Hibs. I was like, right. Obviously, I'm not going to say no to Hearts because they're a massive club, but I would rather go to Hibs. Phoned Hibs, and they were like, we just signed Fraser Five, we can't do it. And I was like, right, okay. Bit gutted, but I was like, Hearts, still a massive club. I was like, brilliant. So went to Hearts. Oh, what a nightmare I had. What a nightmare I had.
Did you receive a fair bit of stick? You must have.
Well, I think that's what I struggled with, because even though a lot of the fans were good, for day one they knew I was a Hibs fan, and I just found it really hard to kind of turn them, because I would be the same, you know what I mean? As somebody that's came out in the press, because I never had a nice word to say about Hearts ever, no. And some people say they were all right, but the majority of them was quite hard on me, which is fair enough. I expected it. I just expected to kind of turn their views around, but I just didn't. To be honest, I was terrible for Hearts. Honestly, I didn't really think I had one decent game for them.
So Robbie in charge? Robbie
was in charge, I didn't think, like, I didn't get a run of games, like, but I didn't do enough to kind of prove my point. And it wasn't wanting or trying, it was probably trying that bit too hard, kind of to try and nothing came off for me. Kind of, it's just one of the times, just nothing was coming off. Even in training, nothing was coming off for me. And at the time, it was Craig Levine phoned me and was like, "Listen, Danny, you're probably better heading off." And I was like, "Aye, to be fair, it's fine." And I didn't say I want all this money. I just went, "Aye, totally." It's kind of no work to it. And that's when I went back to St Johnstone, and probably my best season was after that.
Absolutely, like you say, it arguably is your best season. So you go back and Tommy Wright and everything just sort of seemed to click. You were just, I remember watching you. Everything was just so like free, and you just basically, you just looked free to do what you want, sort of thing, and it suited you.
That's exactly the word that I would use as well, free, because Tommy would always, even my first loan spell, he would always, even though I would defend myself, I would try and work harder, but he would always say, just make sure you're fresh enough when you get the ball to attack. And that was something he always said, and I'm confident that when I get the ball, I can make things happen. And in that season, funnily enough, I scored 2 against Hearts and put them at the cup, and everything I went into every game thinking, right, I'm the best player on this pitch. Even if I wasn't, that's what I was thinking. Obviously, you're playing against Celtic Rangers, I'm not the best player on the pitch, but if you kind of go on thinking like that, then you never know. And it was the best run of games I've ever had. Like every game, I contributed something, and everything just worked out for me. And it was my most enjoyable season, like full season, because it ended up getting my move to Hibs as well, which was something I always dreamed about.
Exactly. You get that move to Hibs. When do you first hear that they're interested? Obviously, you've just a year previously they've signed Fraser Fivey, and you're not getting to go, and then you go and have an absolute dream season at Saints, and then they come calling.
Well, they actually came calling before I went to Peterborough. That was the first time they came. But then when I heard about playing the Championship in England, I was like, no, I'll come back and play for Hibs one day, hopefully. And I always had this timeline in my head, and it was mad how it worked out. I always like, when I'm 30, I'll play for Hibs. Just saying it, and that's what happened. And I basically got a phone call from one of my agents saying that Neil Lennon wants to meet you to speak about a pre-contract and that. And I was like, get me there. And no disrespect to St Johnstone, like, because they know, like, as a club what they've done for me, but Hibs are my team, and as a young boy, and that's what I wanted to do. And as soon as they done that, and to be fair, Tommy Wright was at me every day to sign a new contract, and I was honest with him. I was honest with him, and I was like, Hibs are interested, and to be honest, unless something happens, that's where I'll be going. But it wasn't through doing the dirty. It wasn't for more money. Like, it wasn't anything like that. It was just about playing for Hibs. And once I met Neil, met him, and we never even spoke about football. He took me. We were at Carberry Tower at Musselburgh. And he met me there, and he was like, "Let's go a walk." We went a walk, and we just spoke about mental health for about an hour. Never even spoke about football. He was asking me. He told me his story. Obviously, I knew, but his story was, it blew me out the water. I was just like, his is more like a cycle. He kind of gets it quite a lot every year and stuff. And just when he started speaking about that, and when he said to me, he was like, "Listen, if you ever feel anything coming to play for me, if you feel anything, you knock on my door." And that was something that stuck with me. And I was like, I've never been told that anything like that before. And that kind of, even though I was always going to sign, that kind of just helped it even more. And once I signed, it was such a surreal moment for me. Like,
so Neil Lennon, the man, not the manager, the man, is terrific, and he's really, like you say, he's really there for you already. You know that going in. Obviously, we spoke about it just before. You go to Hibs pre-contract signed, and a tough personal incident happens.
Aye. Well, I signed. What did I sign? I signed the pre-contract with Hibs, and what was it? I can't remember the date. And my mate Sean died on the Hogmanay. He was murdered outside my dad's pub. We were all just there for the. I wasn't drinking at the time. I wasn't drinking. Sean was there. My cousins were there. My friends were there, and it was just kind of no trouble whatsoever. And then it just kind of all went outside, and these kids 16-year-old, 17-year-old, who'd spent all night assaulting all these people. 15 people they assaulted that night, and Sean was the 16th person. And unluckily, Sean died through them attacking him, basically hitting his head off the ground and kicking him when he was unconscious. And I remember seeing it and went over to see him, and he just looked like he was sleeping, a wee bit of blood at the back. But then ambulance came, and the ambulance said, "I think his jaw's broken." I was like, gutted, devastated. And then an hour later, we're in the room waiting for the doctor with his family, and they come in and say, he's not going to make it. So for me telling his dad, I think he's broke his jaw, basically being told you'll never see him again, was, they just sat there and they never even said a word. And I was just like, couldn't believe what was going on, couldn't understand what was happening. And then I still couldn't. I kind of followed the doctor. I was like, "What do you mean?" I was like, because I didn't want to sit in front of mum and dad, and he was just like, "There's nothing we can do and stuff." So anyway, a couple of days go past, and we're up seeing Sean and his life support machine, and we get to see him for a few days, which was good because he just kind of he had a few tubes and that, but he was still lying, like his hair was all good, and he was still like just like normal. So we got to spend a bit of time with him like that, and he donated his dog organs as well, which is massive, and so that kind of happened at a time where it should have been a brilliant time for me and my family, but it kind of went the opposite way, and I didn't feel like it affected me until maybe the summertime, once I had a time to think about it, because obviously I signed a pre-contract with Hibs. I was played for St Johnstone the rest of the season, but I was fine. I actually felt all right, and I think it got the summer once the football stopped. It kind of got on top of me a bit, and I struggled with it. And the court case as well was the one that really I couldn't sleep, so it affected everything with football. And Neil Lennon again was great. He was saying, I just wanted to train all the time. I wanted to just play for Hibs, and he was just always saying, it looks like it's affecting you, and it was. It was just through tiredness. Football didn't really matter, even though I was playing for Hibs. It didn't really matter to me anymore because of Sean. Just couldn't really, felt quite guilty about it. And then once I got past that stage, I kind of started doing all right again. But it was too long and not playing regularly for Hibs, little trials and all that, court cases. It just kind of worst timing ever. It could have happened at a better time, but it is what it is, I suppose. But I still got to score that goal, and that's all I wanted to ever do.
Exactly. Talk us through that goal. Like you say, you get to score for your boyhood club. There really is no better feeling than that, surely. No better feeling. Even to this day, I'm the one for watching like old clips of myself or stuff like that. I didn't really watch, unless my kids want to watch something, but I didn't really look at any of that stuff or that. But now and again, if I'm on my laptop, I'll go back into the file and I'll watch the goal again. And it's just literally because I knew Sean's dad was there, and that was a massive part of it as well. Just I need to get that first goal and dedicate it to Sean, and because he was a mad Hibs fan, we used to go to the games together, and that first goal was, and to get the win as well. I got an assist as well. It was just amazing, and just glad I got one because I had so many chances to get more. I missed a penalty. I just felt like I couldn't get that goal. Once I got it, it was such a relief. Like you say, it's just something hanging over you. So how do you look back on your time at Hibs? Obviously, like you say, you had Sean's death it is an overriding emotion. Like you say, you used to go to the games with him as well. So it's just a tough period of time no matter what, and it couldn't have fell at a worse time. But you managed to live your dream. You did. Mm-hmm. How do you look back on it?
Exactly that. It's like I've done it. Like all I wanted to do, if you could have said to me when I was 12 years old, you'll play one game for Hibs, I would have bite your hand off for it. I played in Europe for Hibs. I played in wee Lewis Stevenson's testimonial, like proper good pal of mine now, got so close to him, and just little things like that, and training at Hibs every day, scoring at Easter Road, beating Celtic, just all these things I used to go and watch Hibs do, and I'm doing it. And I actually feel like at Hearts I was terrible, didn't deserve to play. At Hibs I actually felt I'd done well, and I just felt my best game against Celtic, we won 2-1, I think it was. I felt like I could not have done any more. And in the next game I was on the bench, and that was the kind of thought I thought to myself. And that's when I kind of thought to myself, this manager's not having me. Like, and for all I say about Neil being he was proper honest and stuff, and he's got his own decisions, but I just felt like I was hard done by after that. But still, doesn't matter at all how it ended, or as long as I got to do it. That's honestly what I was bothered about. And telling my kids, I've got my kids on the pitch, like, it's amazing. It sounds stupid, but see having your kids on the pitch and seeing your mates and all that in the stand, it's funny, but it's something that I can always look back on. As long as I got to do it, I'm delighted.
Like you say, it's the little things, and it's nice to hear you're so humble, and like you say, it's just so normal, because it is, like you say, it's everyone's dream as a kid. So then you get the chance to go back to Saints. Was it just sort of it's a given? I'm going back. I'm comfortable there.
Aye, it wasn't really anywhere else, to be honest. There wasn't really anywhere else. Tommy, I still kept in touch with Tommy throughout when I was at Hibs and stuff. I still spoke to Tommy when I was at down south. So as soon as he knew that I was leaving, he was kind of right on the phone, and I basically never said anything else. Just says, "Aye, let's get it done." And it was so quick. It was like so easy, and I was just delighted to go back. And anything, it was never going to be as good a move as Hibs. Like, and nothing else could be, unless obviously you're talking silly teams. But realistically, for me, it wasn't going to be any bigger than Hibs. So I was just happy. I liked playing in Perth, and I liked the people. So it was all set to go back.
Was it disappointing to be released? Obviously, last year it's the curtailed season. Was it always sort of on the cards? Was it a 1-year deal? How did that all sort of transpire then?
It was a 2-year deal, and
right.
I was just really in and out the team, and that I wasn't used to that at St Johnstone. I was used to being the player that's always playing, and we were always a team at St Johnstone where we were challenging the top half of the table, 3rd or 4th, and I was struggling to get a game for a team that was struggling to make the top 6. I just couldn't get my head around it, and it just kind of, I think it played its course, to be honest. It probably too many times I'd went back, and it just never happened for me this time. And I'm usually honest about my own self. Like, if I've done enough, like, I'll be honest about the Hearts thing, the Coventry thing, and that. At St Johnstone, I just feel like, I don't know, they maybe expected me to come back an even better player than I was when I went to Hibs. But no, I mean, I was going to be hard. I couldn't have played any better than I played for St Johnstone. And then, to be honest, the last season, like, I got a phone call from, because obviously Tommy left and I was out of contract, and Alec Cleland was taking over as assistant. So Tommy was away. Alec Cleland phoned me, but listen, Danny, you're not getting a contract. I was like, listen, I'll be honest with you, Alec, I wouldn't have signed anyway. I was like, there's no way I would have been travelling to Perth every day to not even mean getting on the bench sometimes. They were putting boys on the bench that hadn't even played a first team game instead of me. And I was like, this boy's come up for England, under 18s, hadn't even played the first team reserve game, putting on the bench in front of me. And I was just like, I thought it was so disrespectful. Taking me to air and putting me in the stand. And I just said to Alec on my phone, I was like, I wouldn't have signed. I was like, no way. I was like, I'm done. So that was it. So I was kind of having to make a decision what I was going to do. And then I got a phone call for Callum Davidson, the manager at St Johnstone now. And he says, Danny, would you come back? And I was like, I was told Alec Cleland I wouldn't go back, but now that you're the manager, 100% I would go back. He was assistant manager when I was there the first time, and he was amazing. And he was like, so we had a good chat. He was like, how are you feeling? I was like, I'm feeling fine. I'm ready to go. So I had it in my head I was going back to St Johnstone again, and then never heard of him again. Never heard of him again. So I was just like, just thinking to myself, but to be honest, if it was, I was like, all I needed for him to say, listen, Danny, we're going for something else, fine, just tell me. And I've still not seen Callum, and I will speak to him when I see him. I will be asking him, just be respectful and be honest. Didn't he phone me and say, oh, we want to bring you back, and then never speak to me again. So I will see him one day, and I'll ask him about it. But and then once I hadn't heard from Callum, that was it. I kind of made my mind up. I was like, 34, like, why am I chasing to play full-time football now? I'm not going to do any more than I've already done. So it's time to kind of concentrate on kind of after football, and that's what I've done. So,
like you say, you've lately kind of been disrespected by a club that you've played some absolutely great football for. We've not really even touched on it. I don't know when did before we touch on East Fife, when did the financial advisor and the academy, when did that all sort of come? We've just spoke there, you've mentioned obviously thinking about life after football. You really did get those foundations put in place quite early on.
Well, the financial advisors thing that's the end of 2017 I started that.
Right.
But it's basically when I went to Peterborough, I got a big sign-on fee, so I got quite a bit of money just put in my bank. Like, I hadn't seen any money like this before, and I was like, right, okay. So I spoke to an agent's like, listen, do this with that, do that. Had no idea. I was like, right, he'll look after me, knows 40 grand straight away, gone within like 6 months, didn't even know anything. He was investing this thing in America. I was like, oh, whatever. I mean, didn't know anything about it. So ever since that day, I was like, right, okay, right. So once, after getting over that, because it took me, that's a lot of money to me, like, and I was like, what the, that's when I thought to myself, like, why is there no help out there for players? And there is, if you look deep enough, but that's why I started Best FA, and I thought, I'm going to try and find the best advisors that I can, that know their stuff, that are FC regulated, that are advice guaranteed and everything. I'm going to try and offer them to these players. And it started off, as soon as I'd done it, it started off brilliantly. Like, we've got so many players in Scotland. We've just got a big contract there for English Premiership players, and it's gone really well. And then once after the football players, we started doing the general public. So now we help anybody, and it's something that I take a lot of pride in, because if I can see us helping, we do pensions, we do everything, and it's not coming from me. I'm not a financial advisor, but every person that contacts our company personally, I'll speak to them and I'll tell them what they're getting for our company and the work that gets put in for them. So that was the reason why I started it. And to be fair, I didn't know how well it would do, but it's even in COVID and that, it's been busy, and it's been brilliant now.
It's absolutely outstanding. So like you see, you've got that, and then you're sporting it yourself. Then you start up this Danny Swanson 11 Academy.
Yeah.
Is that where you're wanting to go afterwards?
Well, I'll be honest with you, this was not something I always wanted to coach kids, but no, really, my heart wasn't really set on it. I was like, I always wanted to do it, but would I do it? Probably no. It was actually my missus that forced me to do it. She basically set the whole thing up, and she was like, just do it. So if it wasn't for her, I wouldn't have done it, because I just didn't have to get it done. I was just like, if it's put in front of me, I'll do it. That's what she's done. She put it on in front of me, and to be honest, it's only been nearly 5 months now, and I've got like over 100 kids, and honestly, it's the most rewarding thing I've ever done. Like, it's so much fun, and like I do all the sessions myself. Like, I don't have any other coaches or that. I have a wee guy that comes in for college, just voluntary learning, but I do all the coaching, and it's hard work when the kids are off school, because I'm every day, all the time, but it's the best thing I've ever done. And it's something like, if a full-time team was to come to me in the morning and say, listen, there's $2,000 a week to play for us, I would say no right away, because I just love doing this. So I date 4-year-olds, like, what a laugh, and all the way up to like 12-year-olds, and the one-to-one stuff. It's unbelievable, and it's the best thing I've ever done.
Your enthusiasm is infectious, and we will just come back to it. But like you see, you're managing to do that because you are part-time at East Fife. Obviously, they're not playing right now. God knows if we'll get back. Was the part-time deal, obviously you said that the St Johnstone one, that fell apart, but what was it about East Fife and part-time? Obviously you've got these roles obviously that you've got.
Yeah. The part-time thing was, after that I spoke to Callum Davidson. I was like, right, I think it's time now to just, I think part-time football's probably the way for me now, because the money's just not there either. Like, the money's not in full-time football, the money's just not there unless you're at Rangers, Celtic, Aberdeen at that point. It's just not there anymore, especially for somebody at 34. So I kind of took that on board. Do I want to sign for a team in the Premier League to say I'm a football player, or do I want to try and build someone else to take me into the second part of my life? And it was a no-brainer, really. So I think I spoke to every single club outside the Premier League. Honestly, I spoke to everybody, and I had all these offers, like, no lucrative, like nothing that'll say, oh, nothing like that. But the one at East Fife just kind of, I played with Kevin Smith at Dundee United, and he was on the phone to me quite a lot, at being a bit of a pest as he is. And I don't know, they train at the Orion, 50 minutes from my house. I don't know, it just made sense, And the manager seemed fine, and other offers I had was either miles away or I wasn't moving again. So it just kind of, when they said they trained at the Orion, that kind of sold it for me. I was like, I'm not going to travel other side of Glasgow to play part-time football. I just wasn't up for it. And so it was, and I did enjoy it. I enjoyed it. I was just trying to get, kind of, after lockdown, I kind of struggled to get proper fit again, and I felt wee niggles, and I had this injury that kept doing my head in. So this lockdown now, I've kind of been able to kind of rest myself and get myself back ready. So hopefully the season will get back, but I just didn't think it will.
No, because I'm with you there. Like you say, obviously I do a bit of work at Bonner and Groves. So if you guys aren't got to go on ahead, we're certainly not.
No.
Like you say, the coaching, is that where we want to go, or is it keeping it within? Was it keeping with the Bairns, or are you wanting to work your way up?
No, I think what I'm at now is what I love doing. It's like, it was just a trial at first. But like, see, when, like, I got Bairns that I've never met before, that the first thing they'll do, they'll run up and cuddle me. And even just wee things like that. I had a little guy the other day there, and his mum had contacted me, and she was like, listen, I want him to come to your classes, but he's just been diagnosed with ADHD. And I was like, right, okay. I was like, well, why don't you bring up my one-to-one first, get to know me for a few times, and we can see what he does. So he came, and I had him doing a wee bit of things and that, and he was like, oh, this is what he said. He was only 6 years old, and he said, oh, my heart's beating really fast. And I was like, oh, that's because you're working hard. And he went, yeah, I just really want to make you proud. That's what he said to me. And honestly, if it wasn't for social distancing, I would have just picked him up and just took him home. I was like, that's the cutest thing anybody. And then see things like that, and it's just the little things they come out with and how fast they learn. It just, I don't know, I just love kind of doing it and getting up in the morning and going to coach laddies. It's the best thing ever. I don't think I'd kind of go any higher, because that's when the pressure starts and results matter. Whereas seeing them just running about, the day I had a class before I came on here, and it was the 5 to 6 year olds, and an hour, they were just brilliant.
It is an enjoyment, and we touched on it earlier. Obviously, Scotland are going to the Euros this year, about time. It's first in my lifetime. There is a gap, and there's something been going wrong for years in Scotland, and it is grassroots football. So do you sort of feel like you're filling a bit of a void there? And you're starting to make a difference, because you'll have seen it yourself playing around Europe and whatever. We're just not up to the standards, are we?
Miles off it. Like, see, the thing is that I've always thought, right, but see, when I used to be younger, we were like 12 and we'd go to Sweden. We'd win all the competitions. All the Scottish teams would be brilliant. And then once you get to that point where 13 to 17, we just crumble. And I think it's just all to do with coaching, because there's got to be a time where we've got to move on a bit. Right? I'm not to be, sounds bad because I'm kind of coaching kids now, but we can't keep going back to all these old school kind of dinosaurs of coaching. Football's changed. We need to change. Look at all these new managers, like the Borussia Dortmund manager, young manager, all these young managers. I think it's definitely the way to go. Obviously, you need experience and stuff. I get that. But in Scotland, we need to change the whole model, because we've got to a Euros for the first time in how long, and you know what I mean. And we know how we're not as good as all these other teams, but there's no reason why we shouldn't be. Like, look at the setups we've got, the clubs we've got, and it all comes into the coaches and whether we need. I think the coaching badges needs a revamp, to be honest. I just done my B licence there, and I think that needs completely started again, because anybody can pass it. You're not failing it, and all you're getting taught is fair book. You know to have your own ideas, no, do it this way and you'll pass. So we're just kind of going the same way, and it's going to be like that.
Just backwards, like you say. Danny, I really could talk to you forever. You're absolutely remarkable, and you're a really humble guy. There's just one final question that I actually never mentioned to you earlier, so I will be putting you on the spot. The show's called Soccer Supernova. So once this is all over and done with and life is back to normal, who would you be having your glass of champagne with?
Well, anybody.
With anybody?
Yeah.
Thank you very much. That is the best answer.
Just chat about football, eh?
Oh, God, nobody said that. Who did we have? We've had Forrest Gump. We've had John Daly said he's missed. Paul Cherry said Forrest Gump, and we had...
Right. I was just waiting for you. You'd be one of the last.
Thanks.
Listen, Ricky Gervais.
Ricky Gervais.
Honestly, what I would do to meet that guy, I'm going to do it one day. One day. He's the one.
He's the one. Well, we'll mark your words. That's it. It's on record. Danny Swanson, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure for joining me on Soccer Supernova.
Thanks very much.